gang, what is up? It is Monday, June 10th. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final is on tonight. That's looking like it's going to be a great series. We're here tonight to talk about some Red Wings action. Once again, we're about 2.5 weeks away from the draft. Talk about the Mo and Ray contracts, what's going to happen there maybe, some different routes you can go, trades and free agency, and then we'll revisit the draft once again. Let's get right into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Hockey Town Hangout.
Brings it in, scores! Oh, his first NHL goal is a beauty!
The sickest Detroit Red Wings podcast. It's gonna be sick.
So, Forrest, before we get going here tonight, there's a team that resides in the state of Michigan whose tires I need to pump just a little bit, if you'll indulge me.
Goodness. Let's see. The Wings ended their season a little while ago. I know that basketball isn't any good. I'm assuming you're talking hockey. I think you might be leaning a little towards the minor side. Maybe a little Memorial Cup action.
Yes, that is absolutely where I'm going with this. The Saginaw Spirit 2024 Memorial Cup champions. I got a nice little ginger ale in my commemorative cup right here. I got to tell you, if you haven't caught any of that action on YouTube, maybe one of the best hockey games I've ever sat down and watched in my life. The hatred between those two teams is very real. Major junior hockey is so electric, especially in the CHL. What a game. Saginaw dominating them for half the game, and then Saginaw kind of trying to exercise some demons. They almost collapse. London storms back and ties the game, and then Josh freaking Bloom on the doorstep with 21 seconds left. Shout out to Jorian Donovan for finding a way to get that puck to the net, and the rest is history. What an electric game, and great people up in Saginaw. Dave Drinkle and Chris Lazary, outstanding. Fuck the London Knights.
London Knights are like the New York Yankees down in the CHL. They put together a squad year in and year out. I will be the first to admit I'm not the most knowledgeable about the Memorial Cup, but Saginaw, they were the hosts, so the only reason they were invited was simply because they were hosting, correct?
That is true. That is what the haters are trying to rain on our parade, but it's a fair point. But I will say though, you don't get to host the Memorial Cup without being a good team. And Saginaw and London played a 6-game series in the OHL West Final. And Saginaw got to sit around for a couple weeks waiting for that tournament to start, and really looked like, I would say, the most complete team. They did play London in the round robin. Easton Cowan was the heartbreaker late in that one. But just a really nice story for hockey in Michigan. This is going to be able to affect the caliber of player they can recruit and draft as well. So big things happening with the Chris Osgood connection there. Chris Osgood's on ownership. You would think maybe now the Red Wings will stop letting so many great Saginaw Spirit players get through their fingertips when they're in their backyard.
First things first, was not trying to take away from what the Saginaw Spirit have accomplished here. Yes, they only hosted, they hosted the tournament, but at the end of the day, you still have to win your games, right? That's why you go out there and play. If it went the way we thought it would on paper, nobody would ever show up and watch a game live. So, that's the reason you play the game, and kudos to those young boys for pulling it out, and a core memory forever. I know I saw the guy that scored the game winner. He was just so jacked up, talking about how he's got a job for life and stuff like that. He's a Saginaw legacy guy. I think that's so funny. Because you talk about a city of Saginaw hero. That's what these guys are. The good old Sag Nasty up there.
Absolutely.
Anything else to add before we turn the page on this?
Nope, that's pretty much it. And I think Zane Parekh is going to be a stud in the NHL. But moving on now.
Michigan pride, baby.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So first things first, last time we talked, we kind of talked about how whatever happens with Mo and Ray is going to kind of set the path forward, not just for this year, but also for future years. And I think you've heard a lot of dialogue pick up lately. Some people are thinking maybe locking them up for 8 years isn't necessarily the way to go for both of them now. Maybe going bridge with one of them, maybe not both, is a better call. Maybe it's a better idea. Maybe it gives you some more flexibility in the short term. Pretty much what it boils down to is, what's your cup window? What does Steve Yzerman perceive his cup window to be? Is it short term? Is it still long term? These are unanswered questions we can't answer, but it's fun to speculate. So, Forrest, what do you think here?
I think I agree exactly with what you just mentioned. It comes down to what Steve wants to do here, because if he's planning on letting this core continue to grow and giving chances to younger players, I think that you go ahead and you lock them up for long term. But if you really think that this team has a chance to take a step with adding a free agent, maybe you give one a long-term deal, the other more of a bridge deal, and you have a couple extra mil left over to spend on a free agent. And I think that's where the speculation comes from. We just really don't know what he's thinking. But if we go off of track record, the past couple off seasons, he's probably going to sign somebody in free agency, because that's what they've been doing to patch the holes here. So obviously it's anybody's guess. We all would like to have Patrick Kane back, no doubt. That's the big one that's out there right now. But to be honest, if you sign Patrick Kane, you probably don't have room to sign another difference maker on the front end. So it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I know one of the things we're going to talk about here is moves you can make, but I think that you have to get off of Justin Hull's 3 point whatever million, attach a draft pick to him, a second or a third, and you just bite the bullet on that contract and move it. If you're actually serious about adding free agents, I think that's a no-brainer move to open up cap space and find a path forward for success with this team. Like we do have a deep offense. We need to shore up defense and goaltending. I would like to see a move for maybe like Swayman or Ullmark on Boston. Give them Husso, trade him the first rounder this year. And I don't know, something interesting. We haven't had a good goalie Jimmy Howard was up there, but he wasn't going to steal you games the way you're seeing these guys here in the Stanley Cup playoffs do it. So getting an elite goaltender, I think, would, in my opinion, probably be the quickest way for this team to shoot up.
It's funny because like there's obviously no right or wrong way to do it, and you can see it in the final, right? I mean, Bob with a albatross contract, so to speak, for goalies, at least at the time it was signed, and then you got Edmonton trotting out Stuart Skinner, who I'm not sure if he's still on his ELC, but he can't be making that much money, and so. It's just funny, and even the year before with Aiden Hill versus Bobrovsky. So there's obviously a lot of different ways you can do it. I don't know if I would trade a first rounder this year for a goalie. I think you have some proof that you can be damn near a playoff team with Alex Lyon and Ville Husso. You might want to sign a third guy just because we're not sure the workload or whatever. I don't expect Kosa to come in and play 25 games. So I guess really I agree with you on Justin Hall for sure. I would explore every avenue and leave no stone unturned in my pursuit to trade him. If we can avoid buying him out, that would be outstanding. Because I think maybe in a couple years you might want to buy out someone like Andrew Copp, and I think that would be a better 4-year buyout down the road than a 4-year buyout in Justin Hall. Got to be somebody out there for picks attached. And I think I heard on Winged Wheel, they were talking about guys that, trade them away to eat the cap, but they attached a first round pick. But it was like guys like Marlowe, who had like a higher cap hit than Justin Hall's 3.4. So I think, maybe a second and a third can get it done. Maybe a second and a lower end prospect. But I think really something that they need to figure out, forget Ray and Seider for a second. It's what prospects do you think are going to be a part of the solution? Because we've seen this time and time again. Philip Zadina is a prime example in my mind because he's still kind of fresh. If they're not going to be a part of this, you got to trade them sooner rather than later and try and acquire something back that can be a part of it, whether it's a reset with flipping them for picks or you put a package together and bring in an actual NHL piece. I think you and I would probably agree that Danielson, Casper, all the first round picks are probably part of the solution. I'd say maybe Carter Mazer too. But the longer these guys go post-draft, no NHL experience, their trade value goes down. So I think really, I mean, this is a league-wide thing. I mean, people overvalue their own prospects day and night. But getting back to the original question of, the bridge and the long-term deal, I think if it were me, I'd go 8 years with Lucas. I think he probably has the more boom potential. I think he could still get up there and be 90-point guy, maybe 100-point guy someday. I mean, we're all hoping for that, obviously. But I think maybe a little bit of the shorter term with Seider might be a good idea. I'm really apprehensive about giving a young D 8 years, $9+ million. Like, that's a lot of money. And I know the cap's going to keep going up and everything like that, and might render itself kind of useless. This point that I'm making, but I think maybe for Mo, maybe somewhere in the 3 or 4 year range at around, the 6.5 to 7.5 range gives them a little more flexibility, $3.5 million. Maybe that does help in keeping a guy like Kane around. Who knows? And again, Kane, I would keep Kane around because once with Kane around and Lucas Raymond, you could just kind of tell Lucas Raymond's swagger towards the end of the season. Like, you could feel it with the way he was playing. And we didn't see that until Patrick Kane was on the Red Wings. And I really hope that it's just my opinion here with Patrick Kane, if the difference between keeping him and letting him go is the club offers 2 and he wants 3, give that man his 3rd fucking year and worry about it later. Just worry about it later. I really don't see the big deal. If the difference is, I'll sign a 3x6 or whatever, but the club wants to do 2x5. Don't lose Patrick Kane over that, for fuck's sake. Please do not lose Patrick Kane over that. Just give him the 3rd year. You're giving 5 years to Copper, 4 years to Comfort. Like, give him his 3rd year and worry about it later. He's a Hall of Famer. He's good for the room.
I think 3 years would be a little rich for me with Kane, but I get your point. I mean, there's only so many difference makers that this roster has. Your point back to the point about who would be signed. I think your point about Raymond having more boom potential is a good one, and I would err on, if I had to lock one up, it would probably be him, just because I think he's like 22, 23 still. I mean, these guys, they peak at like 24, 25, right?
Yeah.
Mo, I think the thing with him is, in order for him to be making $8 million a season, I think in order to get above that number, you have to be like power play guy. You have to be basically a 60, 70 points a year guy. And to be honest, I think Mo is the shutdown type, but I see him as more of like a Islanders top pairing, more defensively responsible on the back end of their long-term contracts. They're going to be bad, or like a Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Someone that's defensively responsible that over time is, we'll say, maybe a little dependent on just defensive stats. But on the other hand, Mo has proved that he can run a power play. So it just depends. We need a second pairing right-handed defenseman that we really can match up with other teams' top pairings to see what Mo can do. Because right now they're running him into the ground, playing him 25 minutes a night, all situations. The guy doesn't have a chance to breathe because there's nobody else on the right-hand side that can eat those minutes. None of us want to see Petrie out there, and Hull doesn't play half the time. And like Gostisbehere was the 3rd pairing guy, and I think he's a good option to come back. But it's just so crowded everywhere. I think if it comes down to signing a free agent or playing a young player, you have to call up the young player. We're seeing all these teams that are left, they have a bunch of entry-level contracts. That is how players get good. They get experience before they turn 25. They face adversity at the NHL level, and they learn from it and they grow. We've seen Raymond struggles over the last couple of years, and now he's excelling. They have to do this at the NHL level, and until there's a philosophy change.
I mean, do you think if Lucas Raymond spent his first 2 years in Grand Rapids and this was his first year pro, do you think he would have been 65, 70-point guy this year? I mean, I don't think so.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance. It comes with the experience. That's the only reason he's able to make those leaps and bounds. We are not chanting Lucas Raymond's name for the last week of the season and singing his praises without him being in the NHL the previous 2.5 seasons and taking those bumps and the growth as it comes. Like, when Larkin went out this season, we saw Lucas Raymond take off. No, if he was not in the NHL prior to the season, that's not happening. End of story.
So for you, is that second pair right D, is that your biggest need of concern or biggest area to address for you?
In my opinion, yes. For me, it's goaltending and second pairing right-handed defenseman. If it was me, I would move out Hull to go and give 2-year contract to Chris Tanev. Give him $5-6 million, knowing that he might not be as good as he looked this year, but damn, I would rather see him out there than Petrie, simply put. And he's proved his value, and that's the thing, is our second pairing just gets eaten alive versus you look at these second pairings in the playoff, they are strong. You look at those quality Wings teams in the past, those second pairings are strong. Right now, everybody loves seeing our second pairing because it's basically 2 third pairing guys playing up in the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff Petrie cannot handle second right shot deeper.
And honestly, he has a chance to probably be a useful third pairing guy. Give him a little bit of power play time, shelter him in an offensive face-off role. Granted, not saying that I want to play him on the power play. I saw that reaction. That's not what I'm trying to say here, but him in a third pairing role looks a whole heck of a lot better than him getting trotted out there and playing 22, 23 minutes a night.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many nights where you'd check the app at the second intermission and Jeff Petrie's first or second on the team in D minutes. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing? But, I mean, when you're the guy who's playing behind Mo Seider and Mo Seider is getting the toughest matchups in the league, you're probably going to play a lot, which is why I think I agree with you. This is probably one of the biggest areas to address. And then I think another thing too is, the offense. We can't just assume everyone's going to do the exact same thing. And obviously, the goals for and the expected goals for the first 2/3 of the season, the expected goals were low, but the actual ones were high. And then towards the last 20-25 games, it leveled off and was more towards the same expected and actual. But I mean, I would argue 60 games is obviously a bigger sample size than 22. But, I mean, when that team is together and healthy and they're sticking to their systems and they're actually forechecking the way they're supposed to, and their D zone's structured properly and their rush defense and their gap is good, I just think at times when Larkin goes down, everyone gets overwhelmed. And for better or for worse, that's what we saw. And I think at the end of the day, hopefully, if Larkin next year, the year after, whatever, I mean, if he goes out for another 5, 10, 15 games, you would hope they're a little bit better prepared for it this time around. Maybe we don't need to win every game, but maybe we can be a 500 team without Larks and not a 270 team without him. So I want their offense to get a little bit of a retool. I mean, Jonathan Marchessault, is he a guy you could do for 3x7, 3x7.25? I mean, that's a guy who's scored, almost 40 last year, and I think he scored 40 plus the year before. That could be a good fit. I really do like the idea of bringing Kane back. I like the idea of Kane coming back and playing with a guy like Danielson or Casper, or even with Raymond. I really don't think you should split up DeBrincat and Larkin ever again. I think DeBrincat without Larkin is not that effective. So I think that should be a point of emphasis to keep them together. And whether you put Kaner with them if you bring him back, or even just keeping Lucas with them, those three together were awesome towards the end of the year. So I really just hope that, although there's a lot of attention on second pair right shot D and in the crease, don't just forget about the offense. And, I mean, we texted quick before hopping on here. There's a rumor going around that Detroit likes Dakota Joshua at around $4 million a year. And I hope that's just a rumor spread by someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, because holy shit, we do not need another one of those guys, another depth guy at $4+ million. I mean, come on. We got to really get serious here about making this offense not just keeping it where it's at, but that it continues to grow so that maybe that drop off at the end of the season doesn't happen next year.
You bring up Jonathan Marchessault. I think that is the exact kind of player that this team needs. This team needs hard-nosed guys that are going to get down below the red line and they're going to make defense work. That's the biggest thing that this team, they don't do. They dump the puck in and the defense is never scared to get absolutely blasted into the boards. They need someone that's going to go up there and rough some people up. Jonathan Marchessault scored plenty of hard-nosed goals in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, this year. If it was up to me and I had to choose between Kane and Marchessault, I would choose Marchessault every day simply because Patrick Kane, yes, he's got the flair and stuff, but defensively, not as much. And let's be honest, he doesn't skate that well and he doesn't go into the hard-nosed areas. He's someone that needs people to go retrieve pucks. This team needs people to go into the hard-nosed areas and retrieve pucks. Whoever that is, whatever way that may be, it just needs to be a philosophy change. We can't dump the puck in all night long. Continue to rim it around side to side and pretend like something different is going to happen. I mean, I remember going to some of those games together and just like, oh yeah, just rimming her around again. Like, what are we even doing here? We're throwing the puck side to side and it doesn't work.
It did seem at times that creativity was maybe stifled a little bit. And, systems and structures are good. They're necessary. They're not going anywhere.
But just think about how much better this team would be if instead of giving the puck up every time you're about to enter their zone, turning it into a 50-50 puck, if they just tried carrying the puck in more often, they wouldn't be having all these odd man rushes the opposite way, because when you have a poorly timed dump in, you wind up having an odd man rush the opposite way because you have 3 forwards going in to attack 2 defensemen. So if the 2 defensemen can make a play, you have numbers going the opposite way. And I just think that, yes, it's a big philosophy change that has to happen. And like going back to when they had that terrible streak when Larkin was out, coaching, what are we doing here, guys? Because when your best player goes out, you got to have a plan. And these guys, Lalonde and company, have proven they ain't got a plan.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I can hear the ice cream truck going outside right now. It's crazy. But I just think, to me, I was a little surprised that there wasn't like at least one assistant coach shakeup. Just like, I mean, the way it kind of collapsed at the end, I just felt like someone maybe should have been held accountable for that, but it is what it is. I think for me, the biggest thing, I agree with you on the philosophical change. I would like to see them try and turn into more of a puck possession team. I think especially their top 6 is really kind of more geared for that. I mean, at least the Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond line seems like kind of a perfect kind of puck possession type of line. Like, I don't know why, we're having someone dump it in and we're sending Lucas Raymond and Alex DeBrincat into the corner to try and win forecheck battles. Like, and truthfully too, you can have different philosophies and structures for each segment of your lineup. Like if you want your first and second line to be more puck possession and you want your third and fourth line to be more chip and chase crash than that, like that's more than okay too. These guys are professionals. They've been doing this forever. They should be able to understand that.
Well, it's an option in Chell, changing lines and changing philosophies. You damn well should be able to do it at the professional level. Let's just be honest.
And I think that's a big part of it too. I think for me, that'd be kind of how I structure it. You want your top 6 to play with pace, and people hear that and they think, oh, you just want to be fast. Well, it's more than being fast. It's how quick can you get pucks up? How quick can you shoulder check and read and make a good pad? And that's for D, obviously, but you want to think quick. You want to move your feet. You want to get pucks up quick. And I think at times we saw him do that really well. But I think just like without Larkin, they really reverted to a lot of passive shit, and the D personnel was already not good enough with Larkin. So when your best center, your most defensively responsible center goes out, that's tough to overcome. But again, your professional coaching staff, you should have contingency plans in place for this. Maybe they did and the players didn't execute. You just don't know. But for me, I would let's try and get away from the chip and chase identity, the get pucks deep, rim them around. I mean, hey, I love a strong rim more than anybody, but let's try and get that entry philosophy out of here. But I mean, we have so much skill in the top 6, we got to be able to gain the zone, set it up, make reads, drive the net. drop pass, 3-on-2s, rush entries. I just think that we need to be a more puck possession team. And for me, that's a big thing. So
it's okay if your third or fourth line are gonna put the puck in deep and punish the defenseman when they make plays. That's one thing. But when your best players are out there on the ice, and you made the point of sending DeBrincat and Raymond into the corner, no, you're doing something wrong, and it's a philosophy problem. And I'll be honest, it's June 10th. If they start off bad next season, I think Lalonde needs to go in the same way the Oilers started off bad this year. And granted, I'm not saying they're going to go to the Stanley Cup final or anything, but if they start off bad next season, I think Lalonde should be a very easy target to get canned.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to the question, what's your cup window? Is your cup window this DeBrincat contract? I mean, is it the end of the Larkin contract? I mean, because if it is the DeBrincat contract, the next 1 to 3 years, then those first 20 games for Newsy are crucial. If we come out of that first 20 game stretch and we're 8-12, 7-13, that's not good enough, obviously. So, but we'll learn a lot this year, and we'll learn a lot this summer. I think for me, the biggest thing is maximizing the value of the ELCs in your system in assembling this roster. I think it's time to shit or get off the pot with some of these prospects. I think by and large, most fans, like a little bit of development, right? We don't want to just draft these kids and put them on the NHL team. They got to grow a little bit. They got to earn it a little bit. But at the end of the day, you spent a first-round pick, second-round pick, third-round pick on these guys for what? So you can just, bait them with this, dream of theirs? So
we can win athletic number 1 prospect pool participation trophies.
Dude, don't get me started on the prospect rankings. I don't even want to go there. But you really got to decide what prospects are going to be part of this and what ones aren't. And I think this is the perfect time to start integrating some of them. I don't see any Berggren isn't on his ELC, but Johansson is, and he's got to be on the team. Those are the 2 guys who are out of waivers. And then the other ones for me are Kasper, Danielson, and Mazur, 3 forwards. And I don't expect all 5 of them to make the team out of training camp. That would just way too crazy of an idea for the Detroit Red Wings organization. But obviously, Berggren and Johansson are going to be there. It'd be nice if at least a couple of other of them are there, in my opinion. Obviously, Danielson was close last year. I would imagine he's probably going to be close again. Kasper had a really nice year, especially down the stretch there at the end. I think he's ready. I think he's more than capable of being able to handle some NHL minutes. And then you bring those guys in. You decide what defenseman you want to hold on to and which one you want to try and get out. You got to make a decision on Gostisbehere. You got to address that second pair right shot D. And then with those forwards up front, what's up with Kane and Perron? And who are you going to bring in to help them out? You going to go give Dakota Joshua $17 million, or are you going to maybe offer a reasonable contract to someone like Jonathan Marchessault, who can actually bury pucks and help us keep those actual goals for going up? So I think for me, the best path forward is ELCs, and shitting or getting off the pot with some of the prospects. And if there's some that you don't think are a part of it, get them out of town and capitalize on their value. And then with the defense, I'd move heaven and earth to at least get Justin Hall out of there, clear up a little room. Gostisbehere's, I would assume, probably not coming back. And really, you got to zone in on a guy for that second pair right shot D. I would explore trade market for that because I don't really necessarily love any of the guys like your Brett Pesce's or your Matt Roy's. I think Matt Roy, if I had to put a favorite on a UFA right shot D to come, I would pick him just because apparently the pro scouts, love Michigan connections. So that's just the easiest one that history tells us. But ELC's got to be whoever's in those meetings. We got to embrace the ELC philosophy, baby. We got to turn into the Dallas Stars a little bit, and we got to get some ELCs on the roster and then supplement them, level it all out, get 23 and 53 signed. And I think you're going to have to end up running it back with those guys in the crease, unfortunately, whether you like that or not. I wouldn't trade a high pick for a guy like Linus Allmark or UC Saros. With Augustine and Kosa on the way, I think those two are going to be pretty solid. They're solid 1A, 1B. Sucks they're not ready yet, but I wouldn't give up a prime asset for an aging Tendy with those two on the way.
The good news is you mentioned Augustine, Kosa around the corner. I just think that you can't count on Husso for more than 40 games. Yeah, you can count on Lyon for 40 games, but if you had Husso and Lyon, and then you could say you could replace one with one of those top goaltenders, of course you're going to think of it as an upgrade. I just think you look at this roster. If they had a big name back there, someone that can actually steal a game, I mean, what a philosophy change, and how much different would the team coach and the team play if they, like we saw when Alex Lyon played really well for those 2 months, the confidence and swagger this team played with. If they have a guy that can do that for a full 60 games, then this is a dangerous team.
Yeah, I think.
But we could play the what-if game all day with every part of this roster.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. I think the thing for me is I just really don't want to cough up the asset it's going to cost to get a UC Saros or a Jacob Markstrom or any of those
things. We have all these prospects and stuff. If you really don't think they're the guys, then why not attach them instead of the pick? There are multiple ways to skin the cat here. I just think that sitting around and continuing to not take a chance, make a splash, like there's a reason that Vegas is always in the middle of things, because they're always making splashes, they're always bringing in big names, and they're big on fit. Like we're kind of the opposite of that. We nibble around the corners and we sign free agents. So.
Yeah, I think for me, I would be really heavily exploring the trade market or trying to address the D situation. I'd be calling Mike Greer almost every day about Justin Hall. I'd be annoying the shit out of him at this point, probably, or the Utah GM. The cap floor is going up too. Teams got to spend. So I have a hard time believing if it doesn't shake out and we buy out Justin Hall. I just have a hard time believing, like, unless these teams, you call them and you say, hey, I'm trying to unload Hall. And they're like, okay, a first. Well, I wouldn't want to do that either. And I'd be a little more reasonable. Patrick Marleau and his $6 million got a first. This is 3.4. I'll even retain a little bit, a dead cap of $500,000 for 2 years, right? 2 more years. That's better than a buyout for 4.
Well, and that's the thing is, there are ways for GMs to get creative, but I don't know that we've seen that. I mean, we're in year 5, 6 of the Yzer plan, and we're still scared to play prospects. Like the whole point is that we've been hoarding prospects to get out of this rebuild. We can't hold them back.
And I guess too, like another thing as well is I understand the philosophy behind, you want like some of those later round picks, you use those to maybe fill out your coach team or your American League team. And there's so many hockey players, overage juniors that age out every year in various leagues around the world, guys who don't get drafted at all, unsigned college guys. There's so many routes you can take to filling out your organizational depth. Like a good example, we were talking about Saginaw at the beginning of the show. There's a kid that plays in Saginaw. He's an overager. He's out of junior eligibility right now. His name is Alex Christopoulos. He was playing on their first line with Josh Bloom and Owen Beck. No NHL rights, according to his EP. That's a guy, if I was running the show in Detroit, cheap 2-way contract, come to camp, battle for a spot in GR. Why not?
They had a scout there too at the Memorial Cup, so we got to see him all up close.
Yzerman himself was there, and so was Lalonde. But anyway, that's just a homer example. I'm not trying to scrutinize about that, but those are just some kind of thing. And even Braden Hache, the captain of the team, he got signed by San Jose's AHL affiliate. He signed a contract with them. So there's so many. The Memorial Cups every year. There's overagers in it every year. Obviously. All these international tournaments, all the NCAA D1 teams in this country, that there's guys who are out of eligibility, obviously, every year. So for me, obviously, the lower you get in the NHL draft, it's extremely, extremely low that you're going to hit on somebody. Not impossible, though. I would just be trying, I guess my my point is I would be using the NHL draft to take as many swings as possible, even if it's, guys that keep falling for whatever reason, injury prone guy who is whatever. I just think there's too much fear of screwing up. There's all this worry about, oh, well, we don't know if we want to take this guy. We don't know if we want to trade this prospect or keep him. And it's like, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, you are going to get more picks. You're going to find more players. And if there's a way that you can let go of something and improve your NHL roster, which should be the most important thing, then who cares? Too many GMs sit on their hands. Too many GMs just talk and never want to do anything. And I hope that Steve Yzerman, at least at the draft this year, so we can kind of transition to the draft talk. We're sitting at 15. We've heard some rumors that maybe some teams in front of us are toying with the idea of trading out of their spot. New Jersey and Buffalo, 10 and 11 are the ones that I've heard. As we kind of figure out more and more about these teams' needs that are ahead of the Red Wings, who currently sit at 15, if you were Steve Yzerman, what would your philosophy be with this first-round pick approaching the draft? I know you mentioned maybe trading it for a goalie earlier, but if that's not an option, what would your philosophy be?
My philosophy really hasn't changed. I'm taking highest upside offensive player, whoever that may be. We can sit here and go through draft and who's at what position, but I just think whatever way the board falls, you take a swing on high-end guy, whether it be Yzerman or someone else, like even if a Beckett Seneke falls down there, granted, I think he'll probably be gone by 15, but if someone with a high ceiling can fall to us, that's who I think they need to take. You mentioned them being safe and not wanting to screw up. Like year 5, year 6, you got to shit or get off the pot at this point. And we have a lot of those middle 6 guys. We don't have the high-end guys that are needle movers, and that's what you really need to be successful. So I think if there's 2 guys there, one's a safe pick and the other is a guy that maybe might fall another couple picks but has a high ceiling, I think you take the risky high upside guy at this point and try and swing for the fences as opposed to continue doing the same thing. And I think that's why I mentioned trading it for a goalie, for a defenseman, something. You got to use that to upgrade the roster, I think, now, because it is so flawed. We have 3 goaltenders. I don't have confidence that we're going to end the season with all 3 of them healthy. We know that for sure one of them's, somebody's going to get injured every year. That's part of being a goaltender. It's crazy. It's fickle. One year you can be amazing. The next can't figure it out, like Bobrovsky. Horrible regular season last year, and now we're talking. I saw an article about him being a Hall of Famer. Like, wow, what a concept. That guy was not talked about in being in the Hall of Fame at all, and here we are. Steals a game in the Stanley Cup Finals and Hall of Fame. So it goes to show how quickly narratives can change. But I just think that at 15, either you move it for somebody that's going to help now, goalie, right shot defenseman, or you take a high upside swing.
Yeah, I'm with you on the upside thing. I think I'm so intrigued because everyone keeps talking about this run of defensemen, but it's always the run of defensemen happens with like these organizations who are known for just kind of weird shit. So I really don't know what the heck is going to happen outside of 1 and 2. I'm pretty sure it's going to go Celebrini, Levshunov. But after that, number 3, not sure what Anaheim's going to do. Sounds like
real quick, shameless plug here for the Hockeytown Hangout podcast. Not many podcasts had that 1-2 there a couple weeks ago, but we did.
Yeah, you had that. You pissed me off because I was at 3.
He wanted him at 3, and he'd be awesome at 3.
Yeah, I think Levshunov's going to be a stud. But I think for me, if a guy like Berkeley Catton falls, if he's there around that 10 or 11 range, that's the time I'm picking up the phone. I think the list of guys who've scored 50 and had 100 plus in their draft year in the CHL is pretty short. So he'd be a guy I have my eye on. I think even though he is a little bit, I think he's a little bit shorter than Yzerman, maybe by like an inch or two. So he might be a little bit on the smaller side, but I think he is a little more rounded than Cole Yzerman. Obviously, if Cole Yzerman hits, his boom is a big boom. But if Catton gets picked, maybe in that 7, 8, 9 range or whatever, and Yzerman starts to fall, 11, 12, 13, again, that'd be another scenario where I'm trying to trade up to get him. And let's say we get to 15, Catton's gone, Yzerman's gone. Not really any of those big boomer busts. You had the run of D, you got like maybe Hellenius and Branson Nygaard up next on, the best player available ticker that they do.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a scenario where I'm maybe looking at trade down possibilities. Is that a scenario where you could trade down, offload a contract, attach a second and a third to it to get the contract offloaded and still keep a first and a swap? Or, maybe if the pick swap maybe allows you to keep that third, maybe. But again, just I think for me, there's a couple of high skilled guys in Catton and Yzerman, maybe TJ Ginla too if he falls for some reason. I'm starting to get a little Zadina vibes from Ivan Demidov. Just the things that I'm reading sounds like he's going to fall. And I wouldn't want to be the organization that picks him up. I read an article earlier. He hasn't really played against great competition, so it's great that he's lighting it up, but there's a lot of fear, not just with the Russian prospect aspect that they all have attached to him, but that he hasn't played against really anybody meaningful.
Interesting.
So I think he probably is a good slide candidate. I would imagine, Montreal is probably going to do something nuts. So it's going to be great TV at the Sphere in Vegas. Our sick team is going to be out there apparently, so make sure you're tuning into that content. But it's going to be electric. I hope it's a really active week. Obviously, we're all kind of dialed into the Cup final right now, but the second that's over, we're all going to be really dialed into the draft. Think we'll probably do one more mock draft before the actual draft shakes out once we learn a little bit more about the team's needs and where they're thinking here in the next week or two. But in Red Wings land, really, we're just kind of waiting on Lucas Raymond and Mo Seider and what's going to happen with those contracts. Because at the end of the day, we're going to learn a lot about what the future cap landscape is going to look like, because those really are the biggest. They don't necessarily need to be the first dominoes to fall, but they're certainly the two biggest dominoes that need to fall. So we have a better idea of what's going forward. And then obviously at the draft, is there a way that we can offload a contract? Can we bring in someone useful, someone younger maybe? What's going on with the goalies? It's going to be a really interesting few weeks.
I echo that sentiment. A lot going on, a lot of fun content this time of year. Matt mentioned probably another mock draft here, so we'll keep the content coming for you guys. And looking forward to the fun of watching the Stanley Cup Finals, seeing who wins that out, and then obviously we'll keep things close to the vest here and continue content for the draft going forwards here.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us as always. Let's go Red Wings.
Thanks, gang.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Hockey Town Hangout on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.